Commander Hajen pressed his clawed hands against the control panel as warning lights flashed red across the command center. His 6 yellow eyes darted between multiple screens showing human activity across dozens of star systems. The intercepted communications crackled through the speakers in urgent human voices. Emergency evacuation of Colony 7 complete. Moving to defensive positions. Industrial facilities at maximum output. All civilian ships being converted for military use. This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Force. All available vessels. Report to staging areas immediately. Jean's throat sac pulsed with excitement. After months of monitoring human space, the moment had finally arrived. He turned to face Admiral Kun Cho, who stood 8 feet tall with thick gray skin covered in battle scars from decades of conquest. Admiral Hajen said, his voice carrying the clicking sounds typical of his species. The humans are mobilizing everything they have. Our spy networks report weapons factories running day and night. Entire families being loaded onto transport. Ships. They're preparing for total war. Admiral Kung Ho's forearms moved in a gesture of satisfaction. His mandibles, sharp as knife blades, clicked together as he studied the tactical display. Holographic images showed human shipyards working frantically, building new vessels at record speed. How many ships do they have now? Kyung Ho asked, his deep voice echoing through the command chamber. Conservative estimates put their fleet at 10,000 vessels, sir, but our sources suggest they might have more hidden in deep space. Hajin pulled up detailed scans showing massive human dreadnoughts. Their hulls bristling with weapon systems. Kung Ho laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 10,000? 15,000? It doesn't matter. He gestured toward the massive view screen showing Nexer Prime's defensive grid. Thousands of Vorthok warships hung in perfect formation around the fortress world, their dark hulls gleaming under the system's twin suns. The fortress itself was a marvel of military engineering. Built into a hollowed-out planet, it housed 70,000 ships and orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. Energy shields shimmered around the structure, powered by the planet's core itself. "Sir," reported Captain Minho from his station. Battle analysis shows the humans use kinetic weapons and nuclear missiles. Primitive compared to our plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Exactly, Kyung Ho said, walking to the memorial wall displaying the names of 17 conquered species. The Zelkari thought their crystal ships were invincible. Mordians believed their hive mind gave them tactical superiority. The Threx Empire had ships twice the size of ours. He pointed to each name carved in the metal. All of them fell before the might of the Vorthok Empire. Humans will join them soon enough. Lieutenant Biora, monitoring deep space sensors, looked up nervously. "Admiral, something strange about the human preparations. They're evacuating civilians, but not to safety zones. They're loading them onto the same ships they're arming for war." Desperate tactics, Heijin dismissed. It planned to use their own people as shields. It's typical of weaker species when facing extinction. Meanwhile, millions of miles away in the cold darkness between stars, a small human transport ship drifted silently through space. Its hull was scratched and worn, clearly not built for combat. Inside, Dr. Yuna Park sat alone in the pilot's chair. Surrounded by scientific equipment and communication devices, her hands shook as she reviewed her mission briefing one more time. The holographic display showed Vorthok military formations, their fortress world, and tactical assessments that made her stomach turned. Humanity didn't stand a chance in direct combat. Personal log, day 47, she spoke to the ship's recorder. "I'm approaching Vorthok space. The fleet should be here in 3 days. If this doesn't work, if I can't convince them, ... Paused, looking at photos of Earth's children on her console. Humanity's survival depends on what happens in the next 72 hours. She had spent years studying alien psychology, learning how different species thought and communicated. The Vorthok were warriors, but even warriors could be reasoned with. At least that's what she hoped. "Computers scan for Vorthok patrol ships," she commanded. 3 vessels detected, approaching fast, the AI responded. "They're charging weapons." Yuna took a deep breath and activated her ship's beacon. "This is Dr. Yuna Park of Earth. requesting diplomatic contact with Admiral Kun-ho. "I come under the Galactic Accords for peaceful negotiation." The response was immediate and terrifying. Massive Vorthok destroyers emerged from hyperspace around her tiny ship, their weapon systems glowing with deadly energy. Tractor beams locked onto her vessel, pulling her toward the fortress world where 70,000 enemy ships waited. As her ship was dragged through space, Yuna whispered a prayer. Everything depended on the next few hours. Humanity's greatest gamble was about to begin, and she was the only one who could make it work. The transport ship's engines died with a grinding whine as massive mechanical claws locked onto its hull. Yuna pressed her face against the small porthole, watching the Vorthok fortress grow larger until it filled her entire view. The structure was unlike anything she had ever seen. A weaponized planet with countless gun turrets and docking bays carved directly into its surface. "Prepare for boarding," crackled a voice through her communications system. The words were spoken in broken English, heavily accented by the Vorthok's natural clicking sounds. Within minutes, her ship's airlock exploded inward with a shower of sparks. 6 Vorthok soldiers stormed inside, their dark armor making them look like walking nightmares. Each stood nearly 7 feet tall, their multiple arms carrying weapons that hummed with deadly energy. "Human, you will come," ordered their leader, pointing a device at her that immediately locked heavy metal restraints around her wrists and ankles. The chains were cold against her skin, surprisingly heavy. They dragged her through corridors that seemed designed to intimidate. The walls were covered with trophies from conquered worlds, weapons, flags, and skulls from dozens of different alien species. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow that made the Vorthok soldiers look even more terrifying. "Move faster. Soft skin," one of them growled, shoving her forward when she stumbled under the weight of the chains. The War Council chamber was massive, with a ceiling that stretched up into darkness. Holographic displays showed the positions of thousands of Vorthok ships throughout the system. At the center of it all sat Admiral Kyung-ho, on a throne made from the hull of a destroyed enemy vessel. He was even more imposing than the intelligence REPORTS had suggested. His gray skin bore the scars of countless battles, and his forearms moved with the fluid grace of a born warrior. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire chamber. "So," he said, leaning forward to study Yuna, like a predator examining its prey, "the humans send us a single female in chains. Where is your fleet, human? Where are the 10,000 ships?" our spies reported. Yuna fought to keep her voice steady despite the terrifying situation. "Admiral Kung-ho, I am Dr. Yuna Park, official representative of the United Earth government. I request recognition under the Galactic Accords for diplomatic immunity." The assembled Vorthok officers burst into laughter that sounded like metal grinding against stone. Commander Heijin stepped forward, his 6 eyes glowing with amusement. "Diplomatic immunity?" he snarled. "Your species builds weapons day and night, evacuates entire worlds, and mobilizes the largest fleet in human history. Then you send one pathetic ship and claim you want to talk? Our intelligence networks are perfect," added Captain Minho from his position near the tactical displays. "We have recordings of your military leaders planning invasion strategies. We know about your secret weapons programs and hidden shipyards." Yuna took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment everything would be decided. "You're absolutely right about one thing, Commander. Humanity has mobilized everything we have. Every ship, every resource, every person capable of helping." The War Council fell silent. Admiral Kyung-ho's mandibles clicked together slowly, a sign that he was thinking carefully. "Psh," but Yuna continued, "We haven't mobilized for the war. You think we're planning?" She carefully reached into her jacket, moving slowly so the guards wouldn't shoot her. Her fingers found the small holographic projector she had hidden there. "Admiral, I request permission to show you something that will change how you view this entire conflict." "It's a trick," shouted Lieutenant Biora from her station. "But you could have a weapon or a bomb." "Scanner," Admiral Kung-ho ordered. "Energy." Beams swept over Yuna from multiple directions. The scanners confirmed what she had told them. No weapons, no explosives, just scientific equipment and data storage devices. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Yuna said, activating the small projector. A tiny hologram appeared above her palm, showing images of Earth's blue oceans and green continents. I'm asking you to give me 72 hours to demonstrate something that could save both our species. Admiral Kyung-ho had conquered 17 different worlds and fought hundreds of battles. In all that time, no enemy had ever asked for time to talk instead of time to prepare for war. Every other species had either surrendered immediately or fought to the death. You want 72 hours to delay your fleet's arrival? He asked suspiciously. I want 72 hours to show you why humanity's fleet isn't coming here to destroy you, Yuna replied. Give me that time and I promise you'll understand everything. The chamber erupted in angry voices as the War Council debated. Some officers demanded her immediate execution, while others argued for learning what the humans were really planning. Admiral Kyung-ho raised his hand for silence. His yellow eyes studied the small human woman standing before him in chains. Something about her calm confidence intrigued him. In his experience, prisoners facing certain death usually begged for mercy or made desperate threats. 72 hours, he finally decided. But understand this, human. My fleet of 70,000 ships remains at full battle readiness. The moment your forces arrive in this system, we will destroy every last one of them. He leaned forward until his scarred face was inches from hers. And if you're lying to me, if this is some kind of trick, I will personally ensure that your death takes days instead of seconds. Yuna met his gaze without flinching. Admiral, in 72 hours, you're going to realize that everything you think you know about humanity is wrong. The War Council chamber fell completely silent as Yuna activated her holographic projector. The small device hummed to life, filling the massive space with three-dimensional images that made several Vorthok officers step back in surprise. 23 years ago, Yuna began, her voice echoing through the chamber. The human colony of New Geneva faced total extinction. A massive solar flare had destroyed their atmosphere processors and poisoned their water supply. 3 million people were dying slowly from radiation poisoning. The hologram showed a barren planet with gray skies and dead oceans. Human settlements lay in ruins, their domes cracked and leaking. Our government wrote them off as lost. It's too far away, too expensive to save. Admiral Kyung-ho leaned forward in his throne, his forearms crossed. What does this have to do with your military buildup? Everything, Yuna replied. The image shifted to show massive ships arriving at the dying colony. These weren't government vessels. They were sent by the Zelkari, the same crystal-based species you conquered 15 years ago. A shocked murmur ran through the Vorthok officers. Commander Hagen's 6 eyes widened. The Zelkari helped humans, but we defeated them completely. Their homeworld is under our control. Surviving Zelkari scattered across the galaxy, Yuna continued. They had every reason to hate us humans. We had traded with your empire, supplied you with intelligence about their defensive weaknesses. But when they saw New Geneva dying, they chose to help, instead of seeking revenge. The hologram showed incredible scenes of cooperation. Tall, crystalline beings worked alongside humans to repair atmosphere processors. Their natural ability to purify radiation made them perfect partners for the cleanup operation. The Zelkari saved 3 million human lives, Yuna said. And in return, we learned something that changed our entire civilization. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemies, but from turning them into allies. Captain Somin, the youngest officer in the council, stepped closer to examine the holographic data. These are incredible technological achievements. How did two such different species work together so effectively? By focusing on what we had in common instead of what made us different, Yuna answered. Both species wanted to survive. Both valued the lives of their children. Both had knowledge the other needed. Admiral Kyung-ho's mandibles clicked impatiently. Pretty stories about cooperation don't explain why your fleet is heading toward our territory with enough firepower to level planets. Yuna smiled and gestured to her projector. Admiral, may I show you something that your own intelligence networks discovered but perhaps didn't fully understand? The hologram shifted to display detailed images of the Vorthok homeworld. The assembled officers gasped as they saw their planet from space, once blue and green, now covered in ugly brown clouds and toxic storms. Your homeworld is dying, Yuna said quietly. The industrial expansion that powered your empire's growth has poisoned your atmosphere. The chemical weapons you developed have contaminated your water supply. Your birth rates are dropping every year because the environment can no longer support healthy reproduction. Commander Heijin stepped forward aggressively, his weapons systems powering up. How do you possess classified information about our homeworld? This data is restricted. To the highest levels of our government? Because, Yuna said, her voice filled with sadness rather than triumph. We've been studying your situation for 3 years, not to use against you in war, but to figure out how to help you solve it. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and accusations. Several officers demanded Yuna's immediate execution for espionage. Others argued about security breaches and intelligence failures. Silence. Admiral Kyungho's voice boomed through the chamber. The room fell quiet instantly. Explain yourself carefully. Your next words will determine whether you live or die. Yuna took a deep breath and activated another sequence in her presentation. The hologram showed massive human industrial facilities, but instead of weapons factories, they were producing strange-looking machines. These are atmospheric processors, she explained. Each one can clean the air of an entire continent. These are water purification systems that can neutralize even the most toxic chemical contamination. And these, she gestured to images of strange plants and bacteria, are specially engineered organisms that can restore damaged ecosystems. Young Captain Soman stared at the images in amazement. These technologies, they could save our homeworld. Not just save it, Yuna replied. They could make it better than it was before the industrial contamination began. Cleaner air, purer water, more fertile soil for growing food. Lieutenant Biora spoke up from her station. But why would humans develop such technology? Your planets are healthy. You don't need environmental restoration systems. Because we've faced the same challenges, Yuna answered. Earth went through its own environmental crisis 2 centuries ago. We nearly destroyed our planet with pollution and industrial waste. We learned these lessons the hard way. She showed images of Earth's recovery, cities with clean air, oceans teeming with life, forests growing where deserts once existed. We developed this technology to save ourselves. Now we want to share it with other species facing the same problems. Admiral Kung Ho studied the holographic displays with growing interest. You're saying that your fleet, the 10,000 ships our spies detected, they're not carrying weapons? They're carrying something far more powerful than weapons, Yuna replied. They're carrying hope. Hope for your children to breathe clean air. Hope for your homeworld to heal. Hope for the Vorthok Empire to become something greater than a military force. Captain Soman turned to address Admiral Kunjo directly. Sir, if this is true, if the humans can really restore our homeworld, we could end the expansion wars. Our people could return home to a planet worth living on. Admiral Kung Ho's expression remained stern and suspicious, but something had changed. In his eyes, for the first time in decades of conquest, he was considering the possibility that there might be an alternative to endless war. Word spread through the massive Vorthok fleet faster than anyone expected. In the dark corridors of the lower decks, where common soldiers lived in cramped quarters, whispered conversations carried Yuna's message from ship to ship. Did you hear what the human said? Asked Private Dongwu, his voice barely audible above the humming of the ship's engines. She claims they can fix our homeworld. His bunkmate, Corporal Jin Ho, looked around nervously before responding. My cousin serves on the command ship. Says the human showed pictures of our planet that even we've never seen. Pictures showing how sick it really is. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Young soldiers who had been born on military vessels had never breathed clean air or seen natural sunlight. The idea that their legendary homeworld might be restored seemed like a fairy tale too good to be true. On the command ship, Captain Soman found herself at the center of heated debates among the junior officers. Her quarters had become an unofficial meeting place where younger Vorthok discussed possibilities they had never dared consider before. Think about it, she said to the gathered officers. We've been fighting for 70 years. My father died conquering the Zelkari system. My grandfather died attacking the Mordian colonies. For what? So we could claim more dead rocks while our real home slowly dies? Lieutenant Bora paced nervously. But if we stop expanding, how do we support our population? The military is our entire economy. Maybe that's the problem, Captain Soman replied. Maybe we've been so focused on taking from others that we forgot how to build something ourselves. Meanwhile, on the bridge, long-range sensors began detecting massive energy signatures approaching from human space. Admiral Kyung-ho stood before the main tactical display, watching as hundreds of contacts appeared on the screen. Admiral, we have confirmation, reported Commander Hajin. Multiple human fleets approaching from 3 different vectors. Total count is ... over 10,000 vessels. The bridge crew tensed as battle stations activated automatically. Red warning lights bathed everything in an ominous glow while alarm klaxons wailed throughout the ship. All ships, prepare for combat, Admiral Kyung-ho commanded. Charge primary weapons and raise defensive shields. Yuna, who had been given limited freedom to move around the command deck, stepped forward. Admiral, please wait until the sensor readings are complete. Look at what your scanners are actually detecting. Human tricks will not save your fleet, Admiral Kyung-ho growled. But something in Yuna's calm confidence made him pause. Commander Hajin studied his sensor readings more carefully, his 6 eyes blinking in confusion. Admiral, these energy signatures are not consistent with military vessels. The power distributions are all wrong for warships. What do you mean? Admiral Kuncho demanded. Sir, these ships are running massive industrial equipment, not weapon systems and the hull configurations. Hajin's voice trailed off as the sensor data became clearer. Admiral, these vessels are enormous, but they're not built for combat. They're mobile factories and hospitals. The main view screen activated, showing detailed scans of the approaching human fleet. Instead of sleek warships bristling with weapons, the screen displayed massive vessels with bulbous sections and strange protrusions. Those are atmospheric processing units, Yuna explained, pointing to one of the ships. Each one can clean the air of an entire planet. Those vessels with the extended medical bays, they're floating hospitals capable of treating millions of patients. This could be an elaborate deception, Commander Hejin argued. But his voice lacked conviction. Yuna activated her portable communicator. Admiral, with your permission, I'd like to contact the fleet commander and have him explain Operation New Dawn directly. Before Admiral Kuncho could respond, the main communications system crackled to life. Human voice spoke in carefully pronounced Vorthok language. This is Admiral Park of the Earth's Environmental Recovery Fleet. We are requesting permission to begin humanitarian operations in the Vorthok system. We come in peace, carrying supplies and equipment to assist with planetary restoration. The bridge fell silent. Admiral Kyung-ho stared at the screen showing thousands of human vessels, each one designed for construction and healing rather than destruction. It's impossible, he whispered. No species mobilizes their entire fleet for the benefit of their enemies. We're not your enemies, Yuna said softly. We're your potential partners in survival. The bridge erupted in chaos as officers began arguing loudly. Half the command crew demanded immediate attack, insisting this had to be an elaborate human trick. The other half, led by Captain Soman, argued for accepting the unprecedented offer of aid. This is madness, Commander Hajin roared, drawing his plasma weapon. Admiral, we cannot trust these soft-skinned deceivers. Military protocol demands we destroy them before they can spring their trap. Ah! What trap? Captain Soman shot back, positioning herself between Hajin and Yuna. Look at the sensor data. Those ships couldn't fight a cargo hauler, let alone our entire fleet. It's a trick, Jean insisted, his weapon glowing with deadly energy. They're using our own desperation against us. No, Commander, Captain Soman said firmly, as a dozen junior officers moved to support her position. This isn't a trick. This is evolution. This is our chance to become something better than conquerors. You're talking about mutiny? Hajin accused. I'm talking about survival, Soman replied. Not just military survival, but the survival of our entire species and our homeworld. Admiral Kyung-ho stood frozen between the two factions of his own command crew. In 70 years of military service, he had never faced a decision like this. Every instinct screamed at him to attack, to destroy the human fleet before it could threaten his empire. But looking at the sensor data, at the massive ships designed for healing rather than killing, doubt crept into his mind. What if the human was telling the truth? What if his empire's endless expansion had been nothing more than a slow march toward extinction? The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as Admiral Kyuncho faced the hardest choice of his military career. The first human transport ships descended through the toxic brown clouds of the Vorthok homeworld like silver angels breaking through hell itself. Admiral Kyunjo watched from his command platform as massive atmospheric processors were unloaded by mechanical arms that moved with incredible precision. Defensive perimeter established, reported Captain Soman through her communicator. All human vessels are maintaining safe distances, as agreed. Thousands of Vorthok soldiers surrounded the landing sites, their weapons ready but not aimed. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a blade. One wrong move from either side could restart a war that had barely been avoided. Dr. Yuna stood beside Admiral Kyung-ho, no longer wearing the diplomatic restraints that had marked her as a prisoner. Instead, she wore a simple environmental suit designed to protect her from the planet's poisoned atmosphere. The first processor will be online in 6 hours, she explained, pointing to a massive machine being assembled by human and Vorthok engineers, working together. Should start seeing changes in the air quality within 12 hours. The machine was unlike anything the Vorthok had ever seen. It stood 3 stories tall and hummed with energy that seemed to pulse like a living heartbeat. Strange tubes and filters connected to atmospheric intake systems that began drawing in the poisoned air. How can we trust this? Admiral Kyung-ho asked, his forearms crossed defensively. How do we know these machines won't make things worse? Before Yuna could answer, a commotion near the medical station caught their attention. A group of Vorthok parents had brought their children to the human doctors. Desperate for help with the radiation sickness that affected so many young ones on the homeworld, Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead human medical officer, knelt beside a small Vorthok child whose skin showed the gray patches characteristic of toxic exposure. The child's mother held him protectively, her 6 eyes filled with tears. Please, the mother whispered in broken English. My son, ... He cannot breathe properly. The air hurts his lungs. Dr. Kim smiled gently and activated a small medical scanner. Don't worry, we have treatments that can help him. The medication is completely safe for Vorthok physiology. Admiral Kunko watched in amazement as the human doctor worked to heal his people's children. The medical equipment was advanced beyond anything in the Vorthok Empire, yet it was being used not as a weapon, but as a tool of mercy. Why? Asked Yuna quietly, his voice barely audible above the sound of the machines. Why save us, instead of destroying us? Your fleet could have wiped out our entire civilization. Instead, you risk your own people to heal our world. Yuna looked at the human and Vorthok medical teams working side by side to save sick children, because we learned something important during our own dark period. The strongest weapon isn't the one that destroys your enemy. It's the one that turns your enemy into your ally. Over the following weeks, miraculous changes began happening across the Vorthok homeworld. The massive atmospheric processors worked day and night, filtering centuries of industrial poison from the air. For the first time in 3 generations, patches of blue sky appeared through the brown clouds. Young Vorthok, who had never seen their homeworld's natural beauty, stood in wonder as the first clean rain fell in over 50 years. Parents wept as their children breathed deeply, without coughing or gasping for air. The water purification systems were equally impressive. Ancient lakes that had been toxic wastelands for decades began to clear as specially designed bacteria consumed the chemical contamination. Fish that existed only in old historical records were reintroduced to waters that could finally support life again. But the most remarkable change was in the Vorthok people themselves. Soldiers who had spent their entire lives preparing for conquest began learning new skills: environmental restoration, medical treatment, and peaceful construction. The military. Production facilities that had once built weapons of war were retooled to manufacture air filtration systems and water purifiers. 6 months after the first human ships landed, Admiral Kyun Ho made the most important decision of his career. Standing before the assembled Vorthok High Command, he officially dissolved the Empire's military expansion doctrine. 470 years we have taken from other worlds to support our dying home, he announced. Today we choose a different path. The Vorthok fleet will become a force for healing rather than conquest. The transformation was not without challenges. Commander Hajin and several other traditionalist officers resigned rather than accept the new direction. But they were replaced by younger leaders like Captain Samin, who embraced the possibilities of peaceful cooperation. So Dash Min, promoted to Admiral of the Joint Human Vorthok Environmental Recovery Fleet, stood with Yuna at the dedication ceremony for New Vorthok City. The settlement was the first major population center built with clean technology and sustainable practices. Children of both species played together in parks, where flowers bloomed for the first time in living memory. The air was so clean that protective masks were no longer necessary. One human changed everything, Salman mused. Watching a group of young Vorthok teaching human children how to play a traditional game, how did you know it would work? Yuna smiled, her eyes reflecting the golden light of the restored sunset. Because sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't fear or hatred, it's hope. And when hope is shared between different peoples, it can transform entire civilizations. News of the Vorthok transformation spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had lived in terror of the Empire's expansion suddenly saw a different possibility. The mighty warriors who had conquered 17 worlds were now leading efforts to heal damaged planets and restore dying ecosystems within 2 years. The Human Vorthok Alliance had established recovery operations on 12 different worlds. Former enemies became partners in rebuilding what war had destroyed. The Zelkari, the crystal beings who had first taught humanity about cooperation, emerged from hiding to join the alliance. The Mordians, whose hive mind had been scattered by Vorthok conquest, found new purpose in coordinating massive environmental projects. Years later, when galactic historians studied this period, they would mark Dr. Yuna Park's solo diplomatic mission as the turning point when the galaxy truly began to change. Her courage to reach out instead of strike down had prevented a devastating war and created the strongest alliance the galaxy had ever known. The Vorthok homeworld, once a dying testament to the costs of endless expansion, became a beacon of hope. Its blue skies and clean waters proved that even the darkest situations could be transformed when enemies chose to become allies, and in the end, that simple choice to help instead of harm, to build instead of destroy, changed the course of galactic history forever. The end.